I'm going to go ahead and start to introduce our wonderful presenters. So first off, we have Ms. Tasha Carter. Tasha Carter joined the Department of Financial Services in 2003 and previously served as a director of the Division of Consumer Services for nearly 9 years, where she led a team of more than 100 professionals who advocated and assisted more than 300,000 insurance consumers annually. In this role, Tasha tirelessly advocated for Florida's insurance consumers by engaging with the insurance industry, promoting education, and working closely with the Chief Financial Officer, Jimmy Petronis. Additionally, Tasha also spearheaded the CFO's outreach initiatives to promote financial education for all Floridians. Tasha currently serves as Florida's insurance consumer advocate. As the ICA, Tasha is committed to using her more than 18 years of insurance experience to find consumer-focused policy solutions and ensure consumers' interests are represented when insurance decisions are made. Tasha's professional experience includes 20 years of leadership, professional responsibility, and broad experience in regulation, consumer advocacy, and education and outreach. We also have Mr. Tristan Overcashier, who I am personally familiar with, so this guy's trouble, but that's okay. Mr. Tristan Overcashier is an attorney at law for St. Petersburg, Florida. Whoops. Yeah, there we go. From St. Petersburg, Florida. He's not an attorney for St. Petersburg, Florida. That's an important word for him. I'm learning it today. Having not really been out in society for like 2 years, this is all like really alien to me. So Mr. Overcashier practices in the areas of insurance claim settlements, small business contracts, and estate planning. He is also an NFIP certified flood claims adjuster, and for the last 10 years he has inspected and written damage reports for homes following major floods around the country. This has provided him an excellent understanding of the insurance claim process, including estimates, repair contractors, claims, supplements, and appeals. And he is passionate about educating the community regarding the insurance claim process and providing legal aid to clients attempting to navigate their settlement. So with that, I turn it over to our esteemed presenters.
Jason, well done.
Thank you.
You did it.
I did it. Can I talk some more?
Yeah. We'll leave it up to the crowd. Yeah, my name's Tristan. Like you said, I've been a flood claim adjuster for going on 12 years now. I've gone to some pretty crazy places and seen some really devastated areas and some people who have been really put through the insurance claim process, and it can be very daunting. I've also worked with Bay Area Legal Services and Jason, and he's given me an opportunity to help people who are in the claims process, whether it be they need to file a claim or they need to file a supplement. And a lot of people don't know, oh, I can file a supplement. And then yes, I'm also an attorney in Florida, and I do mostly estate planning and some light real estate work. And I'm glad to be here with Tasha, so I'll hand this over to her.
All right. Thank you, Jason, and thank you, Tristan. My name is Tasha Carter, and I am Florida's Insurance Consumer Advocate. And good afternoon, everyone. I know that you guys have had a full day of sessions, and so we had the fortunate luck to have the last session of the day. So we're going to do our very, very best to be exciting for you this afternoon, share some good, important information with you, and hopefully wrap up the day on a high note. Before we really get started, I want to share just a little bit of background as it relates to my office. I like to refer to the Office of the Insurance Consumer Advocate as one of the state's best kept secrets because, unfortunately, not many insurance consumers are even aware that my office exists. And so since my appointment, I have really focused on trying to raise the statewide profile and exposure of my office to ensure that insurance consumers are aware that I am here to advocate on their behalf and to ensure their best interests are represented any place insurance decisions are made. And so just as a little bit of history about the office was initially created in 1992 by the Florida legislature. I was appointed to this position in 2019 by our state's Chief Financial Officer, Mr. Jimmy Patronis. He oversees the Department of Financial Services. And prior to that, I served as the director of the Division of Consumer Services within the Department of Financial Services, which is where I really was able to hone a lot of my insurance experience and my insurance consumer advocacy experience as well. I report directly to CFO Patronis. However, I work independently from the Department of Financial Services. And so as the insurance consumer advocate, I really serve as the representative and the voice for Florida's insurance consumers. And I serve Floridians by actively engaging with consumers and working with industry stakeholders, that would be insurance companies, adjusters, other insurance-related organizations and consumer advocacy groups, to really try to find consumer-focused solutions to any insurance matter that we may be experiencing. I typically have about 3 primary focus areas. One is to balance Florida's insurance market. It's very important that the market is competitive, is valuable, is accessible, and affordable. I also identify company trends and improve market practices. And I represent consumers' interests in form and rate filings as well. I also like to focus on consumer education and outreach because I believe that an informed consumer can be their own biggest and best advocate if they're informed and if they're knowledgeable and know what questions to ask and what to expect in certain situations. And so I really like these opportunities because it gives me an opportunity, as I said, to share information about my office so that you all know that I'm there as a resource, and to educate you and your clients so that, as I said, you can have the information you need in order to make informed decisions. So with that, I'm going to share with you what we're going to cover today. And so we're going to cover several different topics. All of these, of course, are going to be related to insurance. Disaster preparedness is going to be our first topic. What to expect when filing an insurance claim. The insurance professionals that are involved in the claims process and what their roles are. The purpose of an assignment of benefits agreement and what red flags to look out for. And then lastly, we'll leave you with some insurance resources that you can have to share with your clients and to also use as you see fit. Okay?
Yeah, and so just getting into disaster preparedness, just by a show of hands, who has homeowners insurance? Excellent. Who has flood insurance?
Oh.
Okay, wow, that's more than I thought. Excellent. Anybody have flood insurance who's not in a flood zone? All right.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the best.
Very good.
Cheap policies, right? So, show of hands, who has a hurricane deductible on their policy? Should see the same amount of hands popping up. Correct. Does anybody know how much their hurricane deductible is? Okay, yeah, what was your answer? 2%. 2%, good.
Very good.
Excellent. Anybody else? Yeah? 5%, all right.
Very good.
Any other guess on what it could be? It's 2, 5, or?
3.
I guess you can get it pretty much anywhere. The most common ones are 2, 5,
2 and 5.
and then 10, and then if you're under 100,000, you can actually have it be only $500, I believe,
Yeah.
if you pay enough in your premium. Yeah. All right.
So we're going to ask those questions kind of intermittently throughout the presentation just to kind of test your knowledge and create some audience participation as well. So as we all know, disasters are inevitable. Living here in Florida, tropical storms and hurricanes are really an inescapable part of life. And so we really think that what's most important is, while we can't avoid disasters, we can definitely take the necessary steps to ensure that we are prepared so that we can recover as quickly as possible after a storm. And one of the most important aspects of disaster preparedness that is often forgotten by most people is being prepared from a financial or insurance-related perspective. You know, everybody knows to stock up on batteries, water, and non-perishable food items, but most times people don't even think about reviewing their policy and taking other additional necessary steps to ensure that their biggest asset is protected in the event that they're impacted by a storm. And so one of the things that I did, going back to my consumer education and outreach initiative, was I developed a new program called Plan, Prepare, Protect. Are you disaster ready? And so this program really includes actionable steps that consumers can take to ensure that they are financially prepared from an insurance perspective when a storm is imminent. And so we're going to kind of walk you through those steps and talk through the various different actions that you should be taking and doing at this time. And so the first step is plan. What is very important is to review your homeowner's insurance policy, because of course that's what you're going to need in the event that your home is damaged during a storm. And this is a very, very important process because you want to make sure that you understand what type of coverages are included in your policy. What's also as equally important is to understand what is excluded in your policy as well. I often tell consumers that the worst time to find out what your policy doesn't cover is after you file a claim. So you want to make sure that you're reviewing your policy so that you have a full understanding of the coverages that you have. You can also determine whether or not you have adequate coverage to ensure that you can repair or rebuild your home after a storm. One of the things that you may also want to look at in reviewing your policy, of course, is your hurricane deductible. That's just what we talked about, because that's going to be the money that you are going to be responsible for paying if you, in fact, do have to file a claim. What's also important is trying to determine if you have adequate coverage, and if you don't, possibly considering purchasing additional coverage to cover those gaps. And you'd want to talk with your insurance agent to ensure that you're making informed decisions related to your coverage. The other thing that's important to note in reviewing your policy, and why it's important to review your policy as early as possible prior to hurricane season, is because anytime that there is a tropical storm or a hurricane watch or warning issued for any area of the state, you are not going to be able to make any changes to your insurance policy or purchase any new coverage. And so that's very important, especially when we know storms can kind of form pretty quickly. And you don't want to get caught in a situation where you don't have enough coverage and you're wanting to make changes, but you're prohibited from making those changes because a storm is on its way.
Yeah, and flood insurance kind of is the same way. Is everybody here familiar with the flood policy or the flood insurance policy? Show of hands. Yeah, pretty. So it's a national policy, right, backed by FEMA. You have the same policy here as you would in any other state in the country. There's one policy, and as she was stating, if there's a flood in progress, you can't buy flood insurance policy. They're not going to let you. Too many people have tried that and got away with it. But same thing, you need to know, am I covered for a flood? There's a distinction between a flood, it's called a general condition of flooding. And so if 2 or more properties are inundated with floodwaters and they rise up and hit your property and an adjoining property, now you've triggered flood coverage. And that's very different from what your homeowner's property insurance is going to cover. So if you live in an area where you're worried about rising water or you're worried about water that's going to sit in a retention pond, it's important to understand that water rising up from the ground is going to be covered by a different policy. Yeah. I'm not really sure the reason behind that, but I would think because we are seeing a lot of non-flood zones flood. During I guess it was Tropical Storm Harvey, I worked in Katy, Texas, and every single home I worked as a flood insurance adjuster was in Zone X. And so that means you're not considered in a flood zone, and you don't need to carry flood insurance. And so I think it's just becoming more common that you're seeing flooding in areas that are not considered flood zones, and they're requiring you to carry that coverage as, I guess, a parameter to qualify for the rebuild program. Can you speak to that? Yeah.
And then just to add to that, as Tristan indicated, you don't really have to be in a flood zone in order to purchase flood insurance. It's just a smart decision to be able to additionally protect your home in the event that a flood does occur. I often tell consumers that anywhere it rains, it can flood. So you don't really have to consider whether or not you're in a flood zone in order for you to consider purchasing a flood insurance policy. And according to FEMA, just one other statistic that I'd share with you, According to FEMA, just 1 inch of water can cause up to $25,000 worth of damage in your home. If you have up to 18 inches of water, it can really create significant damage to your electrical system, appliances, cabinets, doors, even your heating and AC system. So it's definitely something to consider. Yes.
So no matter what, that's what you're gonna pay? That's good to know. I didn't know, I thought, I was gonna tell them maybe go to Citizens and see what they had, so.
Yeah, it's a federal program backed by FEMA, and there's only one policy. It's the same for everyone. The only thing you're gonna see change is the amount of coverage or the deductible that you have on there. And going back to reviewing your policy, those are some of the most important things to really look at is what are my coverages, what are my deductibles, and they're gonna be different for different types of coverages. So if you have a flood policy and you have a flood and a wind event on your property, you're going to have to pay a separate deductible for the different types of coverage.
I just want to add, I remember when, I'm in South Florida, I remember when Wilma hit, a lot of people had flood damage, but they were filing claims, but they were being told that they're not in a flood zone, so they didn't have flood coverage, but they're being told, this was caused due to flooding, and so it was not covered.
Correct.
Right, and so that's what you see a lot. You see a lot of people, typically it'll be with wind-driven rain, or, that's when you're gonna get the property insurance kicking in. But then when people have that rising water that comes up, gets pushed in from the storm surge, if you don't have flood insurance, that's not gonna be something that your property insurance is gonna cover.
Correct.
And that's why I try to tell people, regardless of where you are, try to get a flood policy, even if it's, you could even say, to her point about what FEMA has determined how much water it takes to cause that amount of damage, even if you don't fully insure your home, the max policy of coverage on Coverage A property is $250,000 for a flood policy. Because typically a flood is not gonna completely wipe away your home. It's gonna come in, it's gonna rise, and then it's gonna recede, and then you'll get a pretty set water line in the house. But she is absolutely right, it doesn't take a lot of water, so, just think about even say, okay, I don't need the max coverage, I'll just get 75,000 in building coverage in Coverage A. So just in case I have a flood, I've got a little bit of something there that can help. There's some drawbacks to that because you have to be insured to a certain percentage to qualify to recover depreciation on flood claims. But other than that, it's just a good idea to have that in your back pocket as a homeowner. And yeah, you see a lot of denials, and then also what's gonna happen with the flood insurance is you're gonna have to have, before you can apply for some sort of flood aid, you're gonna need a denial from your property insurance, saying, no, we're not gonna cover this because this has been determined to be a flood. And that can hold you up in the process of getting aid if you don't have flood insurance. Yep. So consider purchasing flood insurance.
Yes.
Yeah.
Can you speak a bit to the impacts on premiums as FEMA moves to actuarially sound rates?
Yeah, I know there's legislation in New York, I know there's been legislation in Florida that have, I believe they've limited how much they can increase on a yearly basis, even though that they are starting to determine. That was a big thing in Sandy, up in New York, because they had a lot of also increased compliance claims, which meant all these houses were built on slab right next to the water, and they said, no, you gotta raise them up.
Raise it up.
And the other, if you bought your home after they redid the flood maps, and you weren't grandfathered into what your rates are, you could essentially be paying thousands of dollars more per month than what your neighbor is paying, but they're insured for the exact same. So I would imagine, and maybe Tasha might be able to speak to this, it is going to increase premiums as they start to say, no, this is actually what your risk is, and you need to pay for what your risk is because you're going to get the same settlement. There's not going to be any type of reduction when you're paid out. Yeah, so just some things you can do to prepare, and I think this is good advice for all homeowners, is typically you want to go through your home and just make an inventory of your property and start looking at everything you have. I've gone through and just taken a quick video of my house. I don't even think it's more than a couple minutes. And that's really in the worst case scenario as far as flood. I'm probably not gonna lose my whole home, but as if for fire coverage or for something like that, in the event of a total loss, you're gonna be able to show the adjuster, what you had in the home, what, and also quality, because when I write estimates in Xactimate, I can write higher prices for better items. They have different designations for the quality of the item. You'll see good, very good, and so if you can show that to an adjuster, they're gonna say, okay, yeah, we can write this for a little more, or we can do that. So it's a good idea. Flood insurance, especially if you do any contents stuff, they're gonna wanna see models and serial numbers on any contents items, big ticket items like electronics and stuff like that. Take a picture of the back of it, just email it to yourself, that's a good idea. I'd also recommend, get your file, whoever you file a claim with, either for your homeowner's insurance policy or for your flood policy, and just email yourself that hotline number or the email link, so that you can just, even if you're not at your house or you don't have your policy in front of you, you know exactly who you need to contact immediately. Because it's first come, first serve basically with insurance claims, especially in large scale events. If you call and submit that claim early, you're gonna have an adjuster to your house earlier than your neighbor who didn't call.
And just to add a couple of points to that, to Tristan's point, it's very important to also notate the name of your insurance company and the telephone numbers in case you need to file a claim. I don't know how many consumers I talk to after a hurricane and they call my office and they are asking me to tell them the name of their insurance company. And of course, I don't know because there is no state database that, houses information relative to homeowners' property insurance policies. But definitely write that information down. Another mistake that a lot of consumers make is they are so accustomed to talking with their insurance agent. And so sometimes they think that the name of their insurance agency is also the name of their insurance company. So you want to make sure that you can differentiate, between your insurance agent and agency and your insurance company. After Hurricane Michael, there were several local insurance agents that were impacted by the storm. And so, of course, they were not open, not available to assist consumers. And a lot of their consumers, were scrambling because they did not know the name of their actual insurance company in order for them to be able to file a claim. So that's an important piece of information to document. We often tell consumers that when you're creating your list of important phone numbers and your home inventory, that you store that information, in a kind of a fireproof, waterproof box. Well, you also want to possibly save it to the cloud or email it to yourself so that if you are displaced from your home or your contents are significantly damaged and you can't access them, you still want to be able to have access to that information as well, because that'll also help you initiate the claims process also.
Yeah, and you can reach out to your insurance company and say, I just want to request a PDF of my policy, and they'll email it right to you. And then you'll have your policy as well with you, just as a resource that's stored in your email or something like that. And another thing to think about when you get to the point where you're filing a claim with your insurance company, if you have an alternate phone number or anything like that you want the adjuster, that information gets to the adjuster. So when I get the loss notice from my independent adjusting firm, I'll see if there's special instructions on who to contact or an email to provide. As short a time ago as Hurricane Michael that hit the Panhandle, I wouldn't get email addresses on the loss notices. So they didn't have a lot of these on file with the insurance agents. And I've noticed after I did a little bit of work in New Orleans last year for the hurricane that came up there, and you're starting to see that more. So if provide that in the special instructions section, or just give them a heads up and give them an additional contact number for somebody maybe not in the area and an email address so that your adjuster can know who to speak to and reach out to.
Consider making minor changes to your home to help mitigate damages in the event that you are impacted by a storm. For example, installing shutters over your windows and doors, installing roof attachments on your roof to make that more secure to be able to withstand high winds. Also bracing your garage door so that it also can create more of a stable structure for your home as well. And installing these home mitigation features on your home will also oftentimes allow you to be able to take advantage of premium discounts on your homeowner's insurance policy. So you can go through the windstorm premium discount option, which allows the insurance company to be able to verify that you've installed these mitigation features on your home, and you will see a reduction in your premium for those different features. Usually that premium discount is eligible for 5 years, and then you simply just have to renew that. as well. Now, I am working with the insurance industry to remove the 5-year renewal because honestly, once you install the mitigation features on your phone, on your home, you're not taking them off. So, why should a consumer have to pay an additional fee for someone to come out, inspect, to confirm that those features still exist and go through that, verification process again. So that's something that we're working on. But definitely, it not only protects your home, but it also provides you with a discount on your insurance premium. Yes, sir.
Just a couple of quick questions. I'm with Disability Rights Florida. And just a couple of quick questions. First off, how can people with disabilities that are homeowners, how can they access this information? These are phenomenal tips. So how can they reach out and go, hey, I need this for my home? Secondly, these home mitigation measures, a lot of times people with disabilities tend to have lower incomes and can't afford mitigation. Do you know of any organizations that can say, hey, we'll cover it? That kind of stuff.
Okay, sure. So consumers can access the information that we're sharing today. It's available on my website, which is ADA compliant. We also have some printed resources that were up near the counter where you picked up your name badge this morning. So there's some printed resources there. I can also mail you some printed resources. We have them available in English, Spanish, and Haitian Creole. So if you need any of those resources, just let me know. And I am familiar with some organizations within local areas that do offer some additional assistance to mitigate your home. The eligibility criteria may differ amongst those organizations, but usually there are several organizations locally that would be able to assist those homeowners with getting their home hardened. Okay?
Yeah.
After the 2004 and 2005 seasons, the CFO's office had offered the My Safe Florida
Yes.
Home Grant Program. Has there been any consideration of making that available again?
Yes, that's something that we've actually, considered. It's just a matter of trying to find the funds, and trying to put that in place. But definitely, we recognize that one of the biggest barriers to consumers being able to harden their homes, of course, is the financial impact. And so we're really trying to consider different ways and different avenues where we can make that a little more financially accessible for a lot of consumers. As a matter of fact, prior to this legislative session, we had significant conversations with the governor's office in an attempt to try to see if there were funds available for us to be able to create a similar program. Because in addition to education, home hardening is another step that really goes a long way in helping to protect your home. So we're working on that.
This is the protect section of this three-part plan. And so, the first thing you really want to do, and we'll kind of get into this a little more though, is obviously you need to file a claim, right? If you've had some sort of damage to your home, and it's really important that you do this right away. You are going to have a contractual obligation as well to mitigate your damages. That's going to be in almost every policy, flood policy, homeowners policy. You're going to need to start taking, action to ensure that it's not getting worse because of your neglect. You also might be entitled to do some sort of emergency repairs, and when you're doing that, you want to just make sure you're documenting really well, keep receipts, get itemized invoices from your contractor or the remediation companies, whoever's doing that. And then, just knowing your rights. You want to speak to that a little?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So as it relates to making emergency repairs, one of the big mistakes that most consumers do is they don't really maintain proof of damage. So for example, you have items that, may have gotten wet, maybe they're getting moldy, you toss those out before the insurance adjuster has an opportunity to be able to come out and actually inspect, those items. And so what you want to do is before you throw any of the damaged items out, you want to always make sure that you're documenting those items, whether it's through a video, whether it's through photos, but something that you can use as proof of those damaged items that you can provide to the adjuster and the insurance company so that they are aware that you did have those items, they were damaged, and you had to, get rid of them due to safety concerns. The other thing that you want to do as it relates to emergency repairs is, let me back up. The first thing that you really want to do is you want to make sure that you file an insurance claim immediately with your insurance company. And the reason why I say that is because we all know that in the immediate aftermath of a disaster, Our neighborhoods are flooded with individuals that have come in from out of town, and they're really trying to solicit homeowners for all types of things, whether it's to remove down trees from your yard, whether it's to place tarps on your roof, and you may even get individuals that are attempting to come in as contractors, and they're convincing you to sign a repair contract with them and let them file the insurance claim on your behalf. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that process later in the presentation, but that's called an assignment of benefits. And oftentimes, those are abused and misused to the detriment of the homeowner, and most homeowners aren't fully aware that that can impact them in such a significant way. And so one of the reasons why it's important to file your insurance claim with your insurance company immediately is because, one, you want to go ahead and get that claims process started as quickly as possible. There are, thousands and thousands of claims that are being filed in the aftermath of a disaster, and so you want to get in that queue as quickly as possible so that your claim can go through the process as quickly as possible as well. In addition, you want to reduce the opportunity or eliminate the opportunity for any of these scam artists who are looking to capitalize off of your damage from being able to prey upon you and to take advantage of you. So you can do that by filing your insurance claim immediately with the insurance company. The other thing that is so important too is you want to make sure that you know your rights as an insurance consumer. I speak with consumers daily, and of course, most of them don't understand the insurance claims process. This may be their first time even filing an insurance claim, especially of this magnitude. And it's very difficult when you're going through a process and you don't know what to expect. You don't know what questions to ask. You don't even know what the insurance company is required to be doing as it relates to investigating your claim and being responsive to you as you go through that process. And so you really want to make sure that you know your rights as an insurance consumer. And we're going to walk through in just a little while, in a couple of slides, what some are the specific responsibilities that insurance companies have as it relates to insurance consumers and once a claim has been filed.
What would be the first step you would do if you did have a claim? What would you do based off of what we just said? Yeah.
Read your policy.
Read your policy,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Take
Yeah.
pictures of everything.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Very good.
And who do you want to contact? Yeah, your carrier, absolutely. Yeah, you want to. That should really be the first step. Then you start documenting your loss, right? And just keep in mind, if you have a flood policy, it's probably going to be carried through a different carrier. Some are starting to do it more often, but you may have to make 2 phone calls or file 2 claims. I just did a lot of claims out in New Orleans. People just went ahead, and I think consumers are getting smarter, and they filed immediately. New Orleans, they know the drill too, but they have flood insurance and homeowners insurance, and they just called right away and filed both claims. So I would reach out and I'd say, hi, I'm your adjuster for your flood insurance, and they say, okay, which adjuster are you? Because they're going to be dealing with multiple adjusters. And a lot of this storm was mostly wind damage. Thankfully, the levees did their job on this last storm. And but go ahead and file both. And then if the wind adjuster calls you, and you finally get out to your property and you see it, you can say, no, I want to withdraw that claim. I don't have any wind damage. Or when the flood adjuster calls you, you can say, you know what, just I don't need you to come out. I didn't have any flood water to come in. It was just wind-driven rain or something like that. But again, it gets you in the queue so that they can start getting in contact with you, getting it, divvied out to the adjuster so that they can start reaching out to the insureds. Yeah, and so that would be the big steps after filing a claim. So you file the claim, and then you're going to have a duty to mitigate. So you are going to need to start ripping out stuff if you can. We did a hypothetical in a previous session where they talked about someone who had about a foot of water in their home, and it's just sitting there for weeks. In any type of hot weather climate like Florida, or anywhere in the southeast really, if you leave water in a house, the mold is going to just start to grow. So go in there, and if you can, I know there's great services around. Whenever I go to a storm, you start to see the churches and just the local handymen, the people who are volunteers, they'll start to come out, and you'll just, when you walk into homes, it almost feels like that they're just, the bottoms have been cut out of them basically. And it's a good thing to do, is just get the wet stuff out. And that's something you can start doing. And to, Tasha's point is, you've got to make sure you take pictures though. Because I've been to homes where I can't find any evidence that there was actually floodwater to get in there, and they've already cut out the drywall, and then you've got issues. And then the carrier might bounce back and say, we don't have any proof here that there was a flood, so we're gonna deny coverage. So it's so important that you take pictures, and then, you deal with somebody in the house right next door, and if you can, and they have a video of the flood, or they have a video or a picture of the stuff before they ripped it out, it can really make a difference. So documenting your loss after you file a claim is really important. Start working on your contents inventory, any damaged contents item. And again, it's so important, take pictures before you throw them away. You're gonna see the adjusters get out there, Red Cross, then you'll start to see other aid organizations, then you'll see the ServPro trucks, and then you'll see the metal scrappers. Because you'll just start to see the roads turn into these highways of debris, and they're looking for any metal they can get, and then you get there and they say, I had 3 fridges in my house. And you say, well, do you have any pictures? And they say, no. And you say, all right, well, I have 10 at my house. Yeah. And there's nothing you can do as an adjuster, and that insured is out of luck, which is unfortunate. Yeah. And then, so what'll happen after that is once you file the claim, they're gonna get you in touch with an adjuster. A lot of times it's a company adjuster if it's a homeowner's insurance claim. That's someone who works for the insurance company. They're gonna reach out to you, and they need to do it within a certain time frame. And then they're gonna set up what's known as an inspection date. So they're gonna come out to the house, and they're gonna start taking pictures and documenting your damage for you, and then they're gonna begin the process of writing the estimate report and determining the amount of damage that the insurance company is gonna pay out. And there's kind of 2 things here, right? The first is there coverage under this policy, and do you trigger coverage? So they're gonna first, and really it's the adjuster's determination, they're gonna say, okay, you carry this type of coverage, what was the loss here, or what was the peril that caused this loss? Do we have coverage that's been triggered? Then they determine the amount. And so, if, say you file a flood claim and they walk in and they notice it was wind-driven rain, they're gonna say, okay, well, this is a, close without payment claim. We're just gonna issue this as not paying because you didn't have flood damage. It didn't trigger that type of coverage. So first the determination is made if your policy covers it, then you start to get into how much. And that's when it's good. If you've recently done big remodels in your house, keep receipts. Anytime, just take a picture of it. Take a picture of your contractor's invoice and itemize it. So, because I can't tell you how many times people tell me, well, we paid this much for something. And I say, fantastic, I can write that in the estimate. Can you provide me documentation? They say, well, no, I don't have it. And then it's, all right, well, I'll see what I can do on the Xactimate program and write it up as high as I can. But if you can document your loss better, it's going to be more money in your pocket or for whoever you're representing. The claims process will have quite a few challenges and obstacles along the way, especially in the big events. Patience is almost a necessity for everyone involved. I've had 100 claims at a time, working on a storm, just as a single adjuster, to just show you how many claims that adjusters can get saddled with on one storm. And so the main thing that adjusters really need to do is communicate with the insureds. And if you're not getting communication during the process, you really should be on them about that. And you should say, look, you just need to keep me informed of where I am in the process. And you need to keep me informed of what I can expect and when I'm going to have my estimate ready to go or my proof of loss ready to go. When the adjuster comes to your home, get their information. They should have a license of some type, either an NFIP certification or a 620 license. And really say, hey, I also want the number of your examiner or of your desk adjuster. And that's a person, it's almost like their boss. That's a person that when they won't call you back, you can call the office directly. And nothing upsets my examiner more than when he says, why do I have to deal with this? And so he'll call me and he'll get on me about not responding to insureds, if they feel like I haven't responded to them. Usually they're just making it up. They haven't really tried to call me, but yeah, so just think about getting as much information as you can from them as far as their licensing, get their boss's information, because that's another person you can reach out to if you start to feel like they're not communicating with you or if the process is slowing down. And then what we'll get to further on is there's going to be many more obstacles you'll run into as far as dealing with contractors, assignment of benefits, those type of legal issues as you get further down the road when you're starting to make repairs.
And then some additional information that is important for you to know as it relates to requirements that insurance companies are required to comply with anytime a claim is filed. And so the first one is within 14 days of reporting your claim, the insurance company is required to acknowledge your claim, and they are required to provide you with a copy of the Homeowner Claims Bill of Rights. And that Homeowner Claims Bill of Rights really outlines all of the various rights and responsibilities that you have as a homeowner's insurance policyholder. And so it provides a lot of detail. It provides the timeframes within which the insurance company should be responding to you and should make a claim determination, and all of the information so that you are informed and can kind of follow the process and know what to expect. Additionally, the insurance company is required to provide you with the name and license number of every company adjuster that has been assigned to your claim, and they are required to maintain a log of that information so that, to Tristan's point, if you're not receiving communication back, or if multiple adjusters have been assigned to your claim, you can easily keep track of who's been assigned. What we often see in the aftermath of hurricanes is companies typically contract with out-of-town adjusters to come in and help them in the initial aftermath of going out and assessing claims and writing those claims up and adjusting those claims. But then within 30 to 45 days, those adjusters have left the area and they've moved on to the next disaster. And so now you're stuck with a new assigned adjuster, and the first adjuster may not communicate with you that they're no longer your adjuster and that you've been assigned to someone new. And because of the volume of claims that the adjusters are handling, the new adjuster may not reach out to you timely enough to also advise you that they are now your newly assigned adjuster. And so after Hurricane Michael, we implemented this new law to require insurance companies to be able to maintain the log of that information and provide that to the policyholder so that you have all of the information that you need to know who to contact throughout the claims process.
Yeah, and I was just going to add to that for the flood insurance policy, it's instead of the homeowner claims bill of rights, it's the NFIP claims manual. So your adjuster is required to send you that, and along with their contact information, and it's just a breakdown of what to expect in the flood claim policy and the process. Yeah.
Okay. And then one other requirement that's listed on your screen is within 14 days of receiving a proof of loss form. That's the form that you would complete that kind of identifies the amount of damage that you have based upon the coverages that are included in your policy. Once the insurance company receives that proof of loss form, within 14 days, they are required to initiate an investigation of your claim if they have not already done so at that point. So once again, that requirement is in the law because we want to ensure that insurance companies are moving timely as it relates to getting these claims investigated, getting them adjusted, and closing those claims out so that policyholders can move as quickly as possible with getting their property repaired and move back to some semblance of normalcy. Also, what's important is the 90-day rule. So another requirement is that insurance companies are required to either pay the undisputed portion of your claim within 90 days after the claim was filed. If they fail to do that, they are required to pay interest on that claim, and interest accrues from the date the claim was filed. And this is very important because we hear a lot of stories in the media from consumers who say they filed their insurance claim and it's been 6 months and they haven't heard anything. They're still going through the process. They don't know what's going on. It hasn't been paid. And so this is the 90-day timely payment rule. And as I said, it requires insurance companies to pay the undisputed portion of your claim within 90 days after the claim is filed. And that's very important. And the other part of this that's important is the interest piece, because most consumers aren't aware that the insurance companies are required to pay interest if they fail to pay the undisputed portion of the claim within 90 days. And so you want to make sure that you're holding that insurance company accountable for paying the interest if they fail to meet this particular obligation. Okay?
Yes, ma'am.
And how do you enforce that if they fail to provide? Who do they contact?
So you can contact the insurance company directly and you can cite the specific statutory reference. They should, of course, remedy that very quickly. If they fail to do so, you can contact the Department of Financial Services, Division of Consumer Services, where you can file an insurance complaint against the insurance company, and the department will ensure that the insurance company pays the interest. And then of course, you can contact my office as well, and I can follow up with the insurance company also. Yes, sir.
Yes, how much is the interest?
So the interest is outlined in statute. So there's another statutory provision that determines what the interest is. I don't know that off the top of my head. Yes, yes, yes.
Wouldn't this sort of lead to insurance companies sort of like arbitrarily denying claims just so that they don't have to deal with that later, or have you seen that, or are they tend to be fair?
No, I haven't really seen insurance companies arbitrarily denying claims in order to avoid this particular requirement. Oftentimes, insurance companies, of course, they're aware that they need to pay the undisputed portion of the claim within the 90 days. And oftentimes, they're doing that. Now, we have run into several circumstances, especially in the aftermath of a storm, where insurance companies have not paid timely. And when brought to their attention, they paid the interest, with no pushback at all. So, that's something that we're definitely looking for specifically, especially after a storm, because we know that carriers are, having to adjust, thousands and thousands of claims all at one time. And so one of the trends that we're looking for when we look at the insurance complaints that are coming in after a storm is, do we have insurance consumers that are complaining about their claims not being paid timely? And is it related to a specific company or to a specific set of companies? And then at that point, the Office of Insurance Regulation will kind of reach out to those companies to try to get a better understanding of what may be going on. Because the one thing that we want to be mindful of is whether or not they may be experiencing some type of financial instability as a result of all of the claims that have been filed. And so we definitely want to be able to be aware of that and address that as quickly as possible as well. Yes.
Do you see it where they also claim that the insurance company is lowballing them, like they're saying?
Absolutely. The question was, do we see complaints from insurance consumers claiming that the insurance companies are lowballing them? Yes, absolutely. We see that a lot. That's probably one of the biggest complaints that we see is they're receiving unsatisfactory settlement offers. And so once again, my office or the Division of Consumer Services, we take that complaint, we obtain all of the documentation from the insurance consumer, and then we reach out to the insurance company and we ask all of the specific questions for them to explain to us how they arrived at the settlement offer. Oftentimes what we discover is that during the adjusting phase of the claim, the adjuster has used Xactimate, which is an adjusting software that's typically used, throughout the industry, and they may not have taken into consideration the make and model of specific types of items that were in the home. For example, if there were a premium wood flooring in the home, they may have just rated it as just your normal standard wood flooring. Same thing with tile, we see that a lot. We see that a lot with countertops as well, where they don't rate it at the higher quality. And so when you take that into consideration and you look at the overall offer, then it's reduced, pretty significantly. And so oftentimes what I tell consumers is to obtain more than one estimate or quote from a contractor that really takes into consideration all of the areas of their home and all of the items that they have and what it will cost to repair or replace those items. And then you can provide both of those quotes to the insurance company adjuster to illustrate, this is the actual value of my items, and this is what it's going to cost to repair or replace them. The reason why I suggest more than one is because you don't want the insurance company just, to overlook the one and disregard it by saying, oh, well, you just picked a contractor who overpriced and inflated the cost of all of the items. So you want to make sure that you have more than one quote, because that's not only going to help you through the claims process, but that's also going to help you to ensure that the contractor that you select is not, as I said, inflating the cost in order to be able to put more money in their pocket.
Yeah, just to expand on that a little, you know, as a policyholder too, you have the right to file a supplement. So you can reach out to your carrier if you feel like you haven't been given enough money. And, you know, and you can say, hey, you know, I don't think this covered all the damages here. I want another adjuster to come out and do a reinspection and take a look at this. So just keep that in mind if you do feel like maybe you're not getting enough or not enough coverage. Sometimes they'll send out a different adjuster and that adjuster will be more experienced, you know, or will see things or will be willing to write things that the first adjuster was not willing to or didn't have the documentation to include. And a lot of the stuff we do with Bay Area Legal Services is kind of identifying where are you in this claims process. And if any of you are doing legal aid and helping people through the insurance process, you know, think about these. They're very simple things to do that can really be helpful as far as trying to get them more funds for their loss. Is say, okay, well, have you filed a claim? Yes. Did you receive a check? Okay. Have you filed a supplement? And then it stops there. You say, okay, well, reach out, get a reinspection, you know, and see if you can get some additional money. So just keep that in mind as policyholders and if you're working for a policyholder. Yeah.
But if the reinspection comes lower,
I don't think I've ever seen a reinspect. They're not going to come back on what they've already paid you.
At least in flood. Have you heard of that in property
No.
insurance? Yeah.
No.
Yeah, because you're bringing them out for a supplement or a request additional payment is the term we use in flood insurance. So they're just going to be, they might deny you for additional payment, but they're not going to come back on that first payment. Is there another question? Yeah.
Case manager in Gulf County, and I had several clients that I referred back to the insurance companies for supplement, but they were dropped from their insurance when it came up for renewal. So,
Well,
They were insured at the time. I believe they're still on the hook for the supplement. Isn't that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah. So they can still go to
Do you remember what the denial reason was?
just that they didn't want to have insurance. That's what the clients told me, several of them.
No, if the loss occurred during the term of the policy, the insurance company is liable for that claim. So and you know, the only thing that may change that is the time frame outlined in the policy contract for a policyholder to submit a supplemental claim. So, you know, if there's a shorter time frame in that contract and they reported the supplemental claim after that time frame, then that would be a reason for the insurance company to deny it. But just because they're no longer insured with that company does not negate the insurance company's responsibility, you know, to pay that claim. Into a huge contractor availability shortage after Hurricane Michael, you know, in all of the northwestern counties, so. Yeah, okay. And if you run into that, you know, definitely contact our office so that we can just double check to ensure that the insurance company's decision is appropriate. We can, you know, obtain a copy of the insurance policy from the company. We can review the terms outlined in the policy and we can make sure that what the insurance company is saying is absolutely correct in order to just further protect that policyholder. Okay? All right. And then lastly, the insurance company is also required to provide you with a notice of your right to participate in residential property mediation. And so basically, if you find yourself in a claim dispute with the insurance company, either you disagree on the amount that the insurance company is offering to settle your claim, you can definitely go through mediation. It's provided by the Department of Financial Services. They assign a third-party mediator to try to mediate that particular dispute and come to a resolution. Going through mediation is free for policyholders, and the cost of the mediation is paid entirely by the insurance company. Also, you do not have to accept the company's offer if you go through mediation as well, and it does not prevent you from still going forward with litigation if you would like to do that as well. So mediation is just another opportunity to be able to go through a dispute resolution process in an attempt to resolve the claim favorably before you get to the point where you hire an attorney and you feel like you need to sue the insurance company. And it's a free process, so I encourage any policyholder who may be in a claim dispute to go through that process because it doesn't hurt you at all to go through that process. And ultimately, based upon our statistics, about 50% of the residential mediation conferences are settled satisfactorily. So, you know, that's a pretty significant outcome as well.
So these are some more challenges and obstacles encounter for either yourself or someone you're representing or helping out through the process. You know, if you're not familiar with the insurance claims process, you know, you're going to run into issues on timing, stuff like that. So, and just it's kind of an ally to know those timeframes, because you can really push the carrier and get things done in the time it's supposed to be done. I kind of alluded to this before, but the lack of communication from your adjuster, they need to be communicating with you and really get on them. I know we are pressed on that as adjusters. Every time we do our trainings, they really stress the importance of communicating with the insureds or the policyholders and keeping them informed of what's going on. As we talked about earlier, you might get multiple company adjusters. I worked Hurricane Harvey, and about 3 weeks into the storm, they called me and they said, we've got 30 other claims, and adjuster it was too stressful for him and he had to go home. They said, do you want to take him over? And so I was the second adjuster that all these people had met. And so that can happen, you know, and now you've got to get new information, you've got to, you know, see all that. And then that person's now running with your claim, and so that can be an obstacle or a challenge. Multiple requests for the same documentation. Yes, this will happen a lot. So you'll send your information to an adjuster, they won't get it, or they say they won't get it, then they want to see more, they want to see the line item estimate, or they want to see proof of some repair or something like that, if you've got a prior loss or something like that on your home. And then, yeah, there's a lot of bad actors during these storms. I'm sure you've all encountered them along the way, but you're going to get some really crazy contractor estimates. I would say the worst encounters I have been with dry out companies and remediation companies. A lot of times charging people to dry out things that the insurance company is just going to pay to remove and replace. You know, so why am I being charged thousands of dollars a day to dry out a floor that someone's just going to come in and rip out and tear out? I think FEMA has done an excellent job with that. There's now, you know, guidelines. They've issued bulletins that set out exactly how much remediation companies can charge for flood losses. I think it would be a good direction for the state to possibly look into following as well, because you know, not all of them. There's great ones out there, just like everything, but and that really leads to a lot of conflict with the insurance carrier, because the carrier is going to say, all right, we have documentation of your $30,000 dry out bill, we're going to pay $3,000, you know, and now you've got to find other money out of your claim to make up what you might owe, or you've got to go to litigation with your dry out company or your, you know, and that happens with contractors as well. And then, like she said as well, you're going to get a lack of contractors, and you're going to get a lot of people who are desperate to get work done, especially in big scale events like this. And so just even finding someone to come in and do the work for your house can become a very big challenge, and especially someone who's going to do it in good faith. And then what the contractors will run into is trying to get the supplies and the materials ready for you. In it was Tropical Storm Sandy in New York, it hit on the 29th to the 30th. And then I drove up, and that was in October, and I drove up on Halloween, and on November 2nd, about 14 inches of snow fell. And most of the island did not have electricity. And so there was just an incredible run on water heaters and on boilers. And you were seeing water heaters that, you know, we could only write up for, say, $1,100, $1,200 as the best water heater you can get, or the largest one in an Xactimate, and people are getting charged $4,000 or $5,000. And so that leads to conflict. So you're going to see these you know, items as they become scarce, they're going to become more expensive, and the insurance company is not always going to do that. You know, as the storm goes on, they start to see these little issues, and they start to see what is being underpaid or undervalued. In Tropical Storm Harvey, it was the sheathing in between the brick veneer in a lot of these homes and they started allowing us to write that in. No, they don't typically do that. So sometimes they will make adjustments along the storm, but when these things become scarce, they become much more expensive, and the insurance company may just say, we're not going to give you $5,000 for a water heater. And so the consumer is out of pocket. What is the difference between a company adjuster and a public adjuster? There's independent adjusters that it's better to think of it as company adjusters, independent adjusters, and public adjusters. An independent adjuster is someone who usually works for a firm, an adjusting firm, and then the insurance company is going to hire them to come and do the inspection and do the report on their behalf. And that independent adjuster has multiple lines of who they owe a duty to. They owe a duty to the insured to make sure they're doing that. They owe a duty to the insurance company because they are representing them. And then a lot of times they're actually paid on fee schedules. So the more they can write in damages, they're going to get paid more. And that's the incentive for them to try to get as much as they can for the consumer. And then your company adjusters are the people who are sent out by your insurance carrier. They work directly for them, and they're there to also typically get scopes of the damages, take pictures, and then they'll write your damage report, create your proof of loss for you. And then there's the public adjusters who are not free. That's typically people you go out and they'll be advertising during storms. They work on your behalf, but they're gonna take a percentage right off of whatever your final claim amount is. And it can be anywhere from 7 to 15%.
Isn't it capped at 10?
Is it 10 now?
Yeah.
Okay.
For emergency situations?
Yes,
It is,
it is.
okay, yep, that's good.
Yeah.
Yep, and so, that's great, yeah. And, these are some other people you will see in the claims process. So your agent, that's the person who sold you your policy. I've gotten yelled at by agents before, because they don't know the policy. And so they, just as often, sometimes do not read their policy that they are selling. They're just like us. And then you'll have the field adjuster, that's who's coming out to your house. You've got the desk adjuster, the examiner, that's the person who's reviewing what they're writing and is another point of contact. Then you've got a manager or supervisor overlooking that. The mediator, as she spoke to, that's someone you can have involved in reaching a settlement agreement. You also have an appraiser that'll probably be on the front end, someone who's coming out and determining the value of your home. You may have some cases where you need to get an appraiser to come out and determine the value of a piece of property, a personal property, something that's kind of rare, like a nice piano or something like that. Then you've got the public adjusters. You hire them. They work for you as your advocate, as a policyholder, but they are going to get a percentage off the top. The attorneys usually get involved on the back end. And then, of course, you've got your repair companies, contractors, and the water remediation companies. Yeah.
So I would ask then, as a consumer advocate, would you recommend public adjusters?
Public adjusters do play a vital, necessary role in the insurance claims process because they are there to advocate on behalf of the policyholder, to protect the policyholder, and to ensure that the insurance company is held accountable and that policyholder receives the amount of money that they are entitled to. Now, just like in any other profession, we do have individuals that are public adjusters that don't always make decisions that are in the best interest of the policyholder. And so when that happens, we do have a regulatory process that we can initiate that includes filing a complaint against that public adjuster, an investigation ensues, and then depending upon the outcome of that investigation, that public adjuster can be disciplined, including monetary fines as well as suspension or termination of their public adjusting license. My office works very closely with the Florida Association of Public Insurance Adjusters, and they also have a very robust disciplinary process as it relates to public adjusters as well. And so I think that organization, as well as the Department of Financial Services, is really doing a lot to ensure that the public adjusters who are out there and representing policyholders are abiding by the laws and that they're actually making decisions that are going to be in the best interest of the policyholders. But we do have rogue public adjusters that are out there just like we do in any other industry, okay? As was mentioned earlier, if the claim is hurricane related, the public adjuster's fees are capped at 10%. For any other claims, the public adjuster's fees are capped at 20%. You know, and what's important for policyholders is anytime that they are going to hire a public adjuster to assist them with their claim, they need to make sure that they are thoroughly reviewing the contract. Because oftentimes, many consumers aren't aware that the public adjuster is able to get 10% or 20% of the total claim money. And any money that's subtracted from that claim reduces the amount of money that the policyholder has to be able to get their home repaired as needed. And so it's very important for policyholders to review that contract in its entirety and make sure that they understand every provision that's outlined in that contract and how the public adjuster is going to get paid. because that's very, very important. I hear from consumers often who receive a check from the insurance company that's made payable to the public adjuster and them. And they're wondering, well, why is the public adjuster's name on here? Because the public adjuster has provided that copy of that contract to the insurance company, and the insurance company is now required to make that check payable to both parties. And so it definitely becomes an issue when the policyholder is not satisfied with the effort or the work that the public adjuster has, put into their claim, and really feel like the public adjuster isn't owed the amount of money that they're going to be receiving. And so that's a whole different issue. But definitely, policyholders should be reviewing their contract, in its entirety and making sure they understand that before signing it. We see a lot of public adjusters that, verbally advertise their services and solicit homeowners by, telling them that they can assist them with the claims process. You don't have to worry about anything. I can make this very easy. I do this for a living. I have relationships with these insurance companies. I can get them to agree to settle your claim and, provide all of the documentation for you, and you don't have to worry about anything. And somehow they leave out the part about it's going to cost you 10% of your claim. And so, and oftentimes, unfortunately, consumers, especially in the aftermath of a hurricane, are all over the place. They're overwhelmed with everything that's happening. They don't understand the insurance process, and they have this professional that's standing in front of them telling them, I can help you. I can do these things for you, and you don't have to worry about that, and you can focus on something else. They're going to absolutely believe that, and they're going to want to take advantage of that assistance that's being offered. And sometimes they don't ask the right questions, they don't review the contract, and ultimately it can be a decision that can adversely affect them in the long run. Yes, ma'am.
In Bay County, after Hurricane Michael, I belong to a church that sits in one of the older neighborhoods. And there were two contractors who actually preyed on the older people in that neighborhood. They would come and they would, hey, I can do your work, this, that, and the other. Then, some of the older people, well, I'm having a problem with my insurance company. Oh, we also have public adjusters who can assist you. So then they get them, and it was almost like they were nowhere from around this area. Some of them work from Florida or anywhere. Then you find these older people, like you said, they've had this policy for 900 years. They don't know what their policy consists of. They sign, these people go kaput, and then they're just left.
Yeah.
And a lot of them tell them, we can get you more than what your policy says.
Correct. We see that a lot. I remember I was communicating with an elderly couple after Hurricane Michael. An individual came by through the neighborhood offering to tarp their roof and said that, hey, if you sign this agreement, I'll submit it directly to the insurance company. The insurance company will pay for the tarp. You don't have to pay anything. The company signed it. They signed an assignment of benefits. The company turned that into the insurance company. And guess how much they charged that elderly couple for placing a tarp on their roof? $18,000. $18,000. That's the invoice that they sent to the insurance company. And of course, the insurance company didn't pay that. And so that left the homeowners on the hook for paying the bulk of that fee. And these were out-of-town individuals that just came in and they were just fleecing homeowners, who were desperate because this was one day after Hurricane Michael. Everyone needs their roof tarped at that point. And they were offering to provide those services, and you don't have to worry about anything. Your insurance company will pay for it. And they asked them for their policy information, the name of their insurance company, all of that. And they wrote that into the contract. And the contract language said that if the insurance company does not pay our invoice in full, the homeowners are responsible for it, and I can place a lien on your property if you refuse to pay. Yeah, you can submit it as price gouging as well, and that's what we did. But, unfortunately, when it comes to the contract, that becomes a civil issue at that point because that's a legally binding contract. And so, even if the homeowner says, well, I didn't understand that, or I didn't realize, is this your signature? Yes. And you really don't have any other options at that point to be able to even assist that homeowner in being able to get out of that particular situation. So we do see that quite a bit. Yes, sir.
Do you have any data comparing complaints from insurance companies that restrict the right to repair versus those that the homeowner can choose their own contractor?
Oh, those are companies that have the managed repair programs. Yeah, no, we don't have any specific data. We had a few complaints from policyholders that have complained about the contractors that the insurance companies have sent out that, you know, they didn't provide quality work or they weren't satisfied with them. But overall, haven't heard a lot of complaints in that regard. Yeah.
Y'all heard any complaints of contractors doing doing bad accommodation work? Say if a couple in a wheelchair needs a ramp put in, that, oh yeah, we'll put the ramp in, and they never really do, or they do and it's not, there's a big hole in the ramp, that doesn't do any good, that kind of stuff.
We've heard some of that stuff. I mean, it's very similar to just contractors doing shoddy work all the way around and charging homeowners for it or their insurance company for it. And what we've encountered a lot too is unlicensed contractors that are coming out and that are performing work using subpar materials, not doing satisfactory jobs. They get paid and then they're gone. They disappear and you can never get in contact with them again. And so, that's one of the tips too, is anytime that you're hiring a contractor, you want to make sure that that contractor is licensed, to do the work that they're performing. You also want to make sure that that contractor has workers' compensation coverage as well, because if their employees are injured on your property, that becomes your responsibility as the homeowner. And you also want to make sure that they have general liability coverage. So you want to make sure that they are insured and that they are licensed as well. And you can check all of those coverages through several different databases with several of the agencies that we'll go through here in just a moment. I think we have about 15 minutes, and geez, so we're going to go pretty quickly. Yes, ma'am.
Is this ICA in every state or is it only in Florida?
So I believe the Insurance Consumer Advocate is only in 2 states, Florida and New York, if I'm not mistaken. So it's an office that really, should be available in every state to really be the voice for consumers. When I testify in front of the legislature, you have all of the lobbying groups that come up and, and they all are sharing information and, and advising why, this law shouldn't be passed and why you should vote for this law. But you don't really have a lot of people that are up there providing testimony and advocacy on behalf of just consumers and sharing with the legislatures how consumers will be impacted if this law is not signed or if this law, is signed. And I think that's very, very important because consumers just don't have a voice as it relates to the insurance industry. And I think, it's significant that they be represented, definitely. Now, very quickly, this question is about insurance fraud. I'm going to cover insurance fraud very, very fast to ensure that we have enough time for any additional questions at the end. How many of you all would like to guess how much does insurance fraud cost annually? It's actually D. Insurance fraud costs annually, and this is non-medical insurance fraud. Annually, it costs about $40 billion every year. And really, what happens is the insurance companies are basically passing on the additional cost of insurance fraud to insurance consumers and their policyholders to the tune of anywhere between $400 and $700 extra dollars in premium per year.
So insurance cost is going up for the consumer because of insurance fraud?
Yes. Insurance fraud is one of the biggest factors that is resulting in insurance rates increasing. And we're seeing it a lot here in Florida. How many of you all have heard about the bad state of our homeowners insurance market right now and all of the talk and all of the discussion about it? Insurance rates are going up by double digits. And one of the biggest reasons is insurance fraud. And what is happening is not only do we see the existence of insurance fraud happening in the aftermath of a disaster where people are going around and they're canvassing neighborhoods, but now we have a group of these professionals, contractors, water remediation companies, attorneys, adjusters. They've all gotten together and basically they've created a business model that capitalizes off of homeowners. And what we're seeing is they are canvassing neighborhoods, even when there has not been a recent storm, and they're knocking on doors and offering homeowners financial incentives to allow them to inspect their roof. They give them a $500 gift card or a dining card or some other type of financial inducement. And what happens is the homeowners, want the inducement, so they allow them to conduct an inspection of their roof. And 9 times out of 10, the contractor comes back down and says, oh, you have roof damage. And you know what? It looks like it was caused by that tropical storm 6 months ago or a year ago. And if you let me file your insurance claim, I'll handle everything for you and I'll get you a new roof with no money out of your pocket. All you have to do is sign an assignment of benefits. And so basically, you have a lot of insurance consumers who honestly feel that their insurance company owes them. They've had this policy for 20 years, they paid their premium, they've never filed a claim, and so from their perspective, well, they owe me a new roof. And plus, they're believing in what the professional who's knowledgeable, who's an expert, is telling them. And so they sign the agreement, one, without reading it in full to understand the provisions and how it's going to impact them if things don't work out the way the contractor has explained them. And then secondly, they don't realize the rights that they are transferring to the contractor. So by signing this agreement, what it does is it transfers the policyholder's rights to their claim and their benefits to the third party. Now the third party essentially stands in the shoes of the policyholder, and they can make decisions on the claim. They can negotiate the claim directly with the insurance company. They can receive payment directly from the insurance company without the policyholder's name on the check. They can even file litigation against the insurance company without the permission and authorization of the homeowner and without the knowledge of the homeowner. So that's how important these agreements are, and that's why it's important for consumers to be able to understand what they're signing and understand what rights they're transferring to the third party. The other challenge is when the third party now has the right to the claims process and the benefits. Unfortunately, the majority of them now shift from doing what's in the best interest of the policyholder to doing what's in their best interest. And so oftentimes that leads to insurance fraud in the form of inflated invoices that they submit to the insurance company. They submit repair estimates for work that is not necessary and for damage that has not occurred. In addition, they may also bring in public adjusters to assist as well, and they will also hire an attorney if the insurance company denies the claim or refuses to pay the repair estimate that they've submitted. And so now you have potentially 3 different professionals who now are all going to get a piece of the final insurance claims settlement, all unbeknownst to the homeowner. And I talked to many homeowners who, 1, wasn't even aware that they had signed such an agreement, 2, did not know that a public adjuster had been hired on their behalf, an attorney had been hired on their behalf, or even a lawsuit had been filed on their behalf, because they're completely taken out of that process and out of the decision-making seat. So these types of agreements are very, very impactful to consumers and from an adverse standpoint. And so what we've done over the last several years is we've really tried to educate consumers on assignment of benefits agreements and other similar type of agreements to ensure that they have a full understanding of what those agreements can do and how they can harm them in the long run. I talked earlier about agreements that have the provision that allows the third party to place a lien against their property, and we've seen that over and over and over again. And so I really want to make sure that you all have a good understanding of these agreements, how they can impact consumers, so that you can also share with the people that you are communicating and advocating for, so that they don't get into a situation where they've signed one of these agreements and it really takes the claim process out of their hands and they lose all decision-making ability and they lose a significant portion of their benefits. Okay? These are some red flags to really be aware of. Anytime that you think an individual might be pressuring you to sign an assignment of benefits, number one, you do not have to sign an assignment of benefits in order to get your home repaired. If anyone tells you this is a requirement to get your home repaired, that's absolutely false. You do not have to sign that in order to get your home repaired.
Tell them to leave.
Yes.
If they tell you that.
Yes, anyone who pressures or encourages you to try to sign an assignment of benefits, that's also another red flag, because as I said, you don't have to sign one. Anyone who does not allow you an opportunity to review the contract before you sign it, that's also another red flag. They're wanting you to just sign it because, oh, hey, we need to get this done. I want to go ahead and get everything started for you, so just sign here, here, and here, and here. And this contract just allows us to go ahead and contact your insurance company on your behalf. Well, it allows them to do a whole lot more than that. And so you want to make sure that you're reviewing it. From what I've been told by consumers, is that what's happening these days is the contractors are coming in with the assignment of benefits document on a tablet, and they're just basically strolling to the place where you need to sign, and they're verbally providing you with a summary of what that contract entails. And so once you sign it, if you've not reviewed it for yourself, as I said earlier, you might find yourself in a very adverse situation.
So let's say there's a hurricane and you need to mitigate damages, right? And you don't have the money because many of our clients don't have the funds to pay for repairs right away. Especially now there's a labor shortage, so it's even more difficult. So what evidence can they use with the insurance company to show the only options I had were these contractors that were asking for assignment of benefits? Because maybe they come to you, say no, they go to the next door if there is a big event, and other people are getting their roofs repaired and you aren't because you're not assigning your benefits. Wouldn't that play against you in your claim?
So that goes back to filing your insurance claim immediately with your insurance company. If you can file it immediately and get the adjuster out there within, 2 to 3, 4 days, the adjuster can take a look. They can see that, okay, you need to get a tarp placed on your roof. You need to mitigate some damages. They can go ahead and advance you a check right there on the spot to be able to go ahead and start that repair process.
Yeah.
So that's absolutely an option that insurance companies have in order to be able to help consumers that might be in that situation.
And going back to, because I was thinking about the water heaters.
Yeah.
So let's say it's $5,000, but that's what it costs. It's
Yeah.
the market price of the water heaters, and the insurance company doesn't want to pay for that. So what do you do? I mean, in the case of a low-income homeowner who can't pay for the water heater.
I think what you do is you obtain proof that that's what the hot water heater costs. That's the average of a hot water at this particular time. We're running into that right now due to inflation and the rising cost of construction materials and everything else. And so, what may have cost a contractor to repair a home 2 years ago or 3 years ago is now sometimes double or triple that amount today. And so insurance companies are beginning to start to increase, the repair estimates in their adjusting processes to take into consideration the rising cost of construction materials. Okay, you're welcome. So very quickly, I wanted to run through some important resources for you to assist your clients and to refer your clients to. So one is the Division of Investigative and Forensic Services. That's within the Department of Financial Services. This is where consumers would report insurance fraud. This is the organization that would investigate insurance fraud. They also are law enforcement officers, so they can also arrest individuals who have committed insurance fraud and refer those individuals for prosecution, okay? You can report insurance fraud by phone or through the online portal. Division of Consumer Services is also within the Department of Financial Services. This is the group that you can file insurance complaints with. You can file an insurance complaint against an insurance company, an insurance agent, or an insurance agency. And essentially, they receive the information related to your complaint. Then they actually contact the insurance company on your behalf, and they essentially conduct an investigation and a review of the insurance company's actions. They know the law. They know what the insurance company is required to do, and so they will check all of those boxes to ensure that that has been taken care of, and then they will provide you with a response. Sometimes it's as simple as, hey, I haven't heard from my insurance company in, 3 weeks, and I filed my claim, and, they're not moving on it. Just contacting the Division of Consumer Services will definitely get that claim moving. As soon as the companies receive a notification from the division that they've heard from one of their policyholders, you better believe that that insurance company is jumping on that claim rather quickly to go ahead and get it done, because what they want to do is be able to respond to us and say, oh, the claim has been resolved, okay? So please utilize that particular resource. The FAIA is the Florida Association of Insurance Agents. They hold their insurance agents accountable for making sure that they're educating insurance consumers and they're providing the appropriate information that insurance consumers may need in order to be able to find coverage and to understand their insurance policy. So this is also a good resource, especially if you have any consumers or clients who are having difficulty finding insurance coverage, because we're facing, that throughout the state as well. So anyone who's looking for insurance coverage, going to FAIA will be able to pair them up with an insurance agent in their area who would be able to assist them in that effort. The Florida Association of Public Insurance Adjusters, once again, that's the organization that helps to oversee and regulate the public adjusters. And anytime you have a complaint against a public adjuster, you can not only contact the Division of Consumer Services, but you can also report that adjuster to this particular organization as well. And then the Department of Business and Professional Regulation, of course, licenses contractors, and they also regulate and oversee contractors. So if you want to confirm that a contractor is licensed, you would contact the department for that information. And if you want to file a complaint against a contractor, you would do that with DPPR as well, and they would conduct an investigation regarding that also. And then, of course, you have my office, the Office of the Insurance Consumer Advocate. So if I can be of any assistance on any insurance matter, whether it's large, whether it's small, whether it's specific to a consumer or client that you are working with, or if it's just an overall issue on a more global perspective that I can potentially assist with, please don't hesitate to reach out to me so that I can be a resource to you.
Yeah, thank you very much. That's great. Thanks for participating. Yeah.